Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to this week's Radio Ramadan. We are going to start with Surat Al-Jumu'ah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is by Sheikh Imam Yusuf Sahin.
الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون فإذا قضيتم الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. You are listening to the Muslim Cultural and Welfare Association of Sutton Radio Ramadan. My name is Kashif, as I said, and I'm your host today. We will be joined by our guest, Sister Olga Koto, who you will recognize as a member of the Board of Trustees. She's also the Treasurer at Makwas. Today's program starts with some verses about Ramadan from the Quran, verses 183 to 186 of Surah Baqarah. And then we are pleased to present an interview with Sister Dr. Sadia about the COVID vaccine community hub that has been successfully run by volunteers at Wentworth Hall in conjunction with the NHS, and it was well received by the community around Carshalton and Wallington. We will also present extracts from this week's interview with the youngest first Scottish and first female Secretary General of the Muslim Council of Britain, the MCB. Her name is Zara Muhammad. She has a Master's in Human Rights Law. She was the president of FOSIS, which is the Federation of Students' Islamic Societies. And she has been a guest speaker in the House of Commons. So incredibly humble when you speak to her, and she gave me some valuable insights to her vision for the MCB. So just to let you know, today's iftar time or Maghrib time is 8:29. This will be preceded by du'as by Imam Yusuf Sahin, our Imam, followed by the dua to break the fast, and then the adhan. These will all be translated by some of the younger children in our community. So we'll make a start soon. We have a lot to get through. The time is now 7:05 or 7:06 actually. And I'm now going to play the Quran Ramadan verse by Imam Yusuf Sahin, followed by the translation by Amal Kiladar.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون أياما معدودات فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير له وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون.
O believers, fasting is prescribed for you, as it was for those before you, so perhaps you will become mindful of Allah. Fast a prescribed number of days, but whoever of you is ill or on a journey, then let them fast an equal number of days after Ramadan. For those who can only fast with extreme difficulty, compensation can be made by feeding a needy person for every day not fasted. But whoever volunteers to give more, it is better for them. And to fast is better for you, if only you knew. Ramadan is the month in which the Quran was revealed as a guide for humanity, with clear proofs of guidance and the standard to distinguish between right and wrong. So whoever is present this month, let them fast. But whoever is ill or on a journey, then let them fast an equal number of days after Ramadan. Allah intends ease for you, not hardship, so that you may complete the prescribed period and proclaim the greatness of Allah for guiding you, and perhaps you will be grateful. When my servants ask you, O Prophet, about me, I am truly near. I respond to one's prayer when they call upon me. So let them respond with obedience to me and believe in me. Perhaps they will be guided to the right way.
Right, so again this week we encourage the younger members of the community to join us and to tell us about their first Ramadan experiences, or recite any surahs they have recently learned. You can send a message to others as well while you're on the show. So in order to join, just remember you have to send a WhatsApp message with your name and age to this number 07340 973 571. That's 07340 973 571, and then we'll send you details of how you can dial in to the Zoom call. Okay, so as I mentioned, today we have our first guest, Sister Olga. Welcome, Sister Olga. Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Kashif, I can hear you.
Okay, good. As I struggle with this technology, I think we are broadcasting live. So great. Well, welcome to the radio station, and thank you for giving us the time. I know you are very busy in everything you do. Would you mind if I asked you a personal question first, right? I guess you probably knew this is coming when it comes to me. So you have a kind of Eastern European or Slavic name, an Australian accent, and yet you're Indonesian, right? I think you would tick every box in the inclusivity test. So how did this happen?
Okay, that's a good question. So the name Olga is probably not overly interesting. My mum chose the name for me as an iteration of the River Volga in Russia, which is the
Ah,
longest river in Europe. I think she was a bit of a hipster, and she didn't want to give me a name that would be easily forgotten.
right.
I don't think there are many Indonesians with that same name, and I like to see people's reactions when I meet them for the first time. I don't look like a typical Olga, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I bet. So,
And
yeah,
and
sorry, and illustrate.
my parents immigrated to Sydney, Australia, back in the 70s. Back then, it was a very small Indonesian community, and most gatherings were held at the Indonesian consulate, where, as children, we learned how to speak Indonesian. We attended Islamic classes and events, but we also did, very Indonesian cultural things like, learning Indonesian dance and, musical instruments and things like that. There's a significant Indonesian community now. It's a
I
popular
bet.
settlement
Yeah.
destination for Yeah, it's a popular settlement destination for Indonesians during, the times of immigration influx, because obviously
Mm,
Indonesia is one of Australia's closest neighbours.
exactly. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
And
So a lot of the
since,
Far East do emigrate to Australia.
yeah, and I think since being married, we've lived in a few countries, but all in all, I've been away from Australia for about 22 years now. So
Okay.
the Aussie twang in my accent has softened a little bit, but I always find it funny. I'm pleased when people ask, "Is that an Australian accent?" So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And and so how long have you been in the UK?
we've been in the UK for 16 years now, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And you don't miss the Aussie weather?
Oh, definitely. The Aussie weather is more temperamental than the British weather, but yeah, we miss, I guess, living close to beaches and sunny, more predictable weather all year round, I guess. But it's lovely to live in the UK with winter and snow and
Yeah.
the seasons. Yeah.
And South London, Wallington, right? What a place to be, eh?
We moved here like 5 years ago, actually, 5, 6 years
Yeah.
ago when our son started school locally here. But before that, we were living not very far from East London Mosque, actually, in Limehouse. So we lived
Yes.
there for
Yes.
most of
Eastman's
our
told me you were in Canary
adolescence.
Wharf somewhere. Okay. So
Yeah.
you've been a trustee on the board for Macquarie for a few months now. How are you finding it? Do you constantly try to make the meetings more efficient and focused, or and do the brother trustees take your instruction?
So I think being on the board for all of us, I think, has been a very steep learning curve. We've had to learn things very quickly. I don't think that any of us fully appreciated just the magnitude of work and some of the complexity of the work that is required to run the centre as effectively and efficiently as possible. I think we've also been a little bit, tarnished, I guess, by the COVID factor that we've had to
Mm,
work alongside, which hasn't made things particularly easy. But alhamdulillah, I think all things considered, it's been a solid sort of like 4 to 6 months, I think, that we've been working together. Yeah, we've had to adapt to each other's working styles and personalities. We've got a weekly working meeting group, and then we also have a full board monthly meeting, which always overruns.
yeah.
Um, and I think we're good at taking each other's instruction. I think everyone is passionate about wanting to do more for the community and to have a thriving centre. But it's been alhamdulillah, it's been good.
I mean, if it's any feedback from, I mean, anything I've heard, I mean, I know how much work goes into. Well, I don't actually know. I don't see it, but I can imagine, and I've seen some of you guys, do the things you do. the amount of work that goes just to have the weekly meetings and then your monthly boards, and then the success with all the Ramadan activities you guys are doing during COVID, with the fundraising and the food bank work and the parcels going out to all the people who are needy. I know it takes a lot of effort, and all I've heard is good stuff about the way that the trustees are working. So I think COVID has been a big challenge for everyone, and I think the community, rather than just shut down, has made lots of sensible decisions, which I'm sure we'll hear about soon. We're just going to move on to our next item here. So we've had a very successful vaccination hub, a COVID vaccination hub, run out of Wentworth Hall in the past few months. I think we've had 2 sessions so far. I could be wrong, there may have been 3. I know there are others in the community as well. So here is Dr. or Sister Dr. Sadia in an interview with Sister Olga, telling us all about the COVID hub that's been run over here.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Sadia.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Olga.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine.
That's good. That's wonderful to hear. So thank you for speaking with me today. I guess shall we start with just you letting us know a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Sadia. I'm a GP in Sutton, and I have sort of been brought up with Makwas. So I remember very early memories of going when I was 14, 13 years old to Taraweeh at the mosque with my dad, and for obviously Eid prayers. So it's been my local mosque for many, many years. I'm now in my 40s, so you can imagine. And I've just always tried to be involved with community work. So when I was a teenager, I used to help with the madrasas on the weekends, and then when after I got married and had children, we were not in the area for many years. But when we came back to London, and we were back in South London, then again we wanted to participate in the mosque. And me and my husband, mashallah, have done lots of events in Makwas, mashallah, with the support of other people, like the basic first aid. We've done the school visits and various things like that.
Oh, that's lovely to hear. So your history with Makwas goes back quite a long time, doesn't it?
Yes, it goes back quite a long time, mashallah.
And I guess 3 generations, right?
Yeah, it's like, my father, I think, was one of the people who sort of found the building. So it used to be at a different area in, I think it was at Robin Hood, somewhere around there. They used to pray, and then they were looking for another centre, and there were a few elders involved in finding it, and then they found this place. And like I say, I think Lal Hussain, the former mayor of Sutton, he had put in a lot of work to get this place and get it for like the Muslim community.
Oh, that's lovely, mashallah. So you're a GP in Sutton, and I guess could you tell us a little bit about the 2 vaccination days that Makwas recently hosted?
Yes, so Makwas, alhamdulillah, with the support, I must say thanks to my husband Nadeem and Dr. Aziz and Sutton Medical Centre, who were really big in instigating it, along with the Sutton Primary Care Networks, who were the ones who gave us permission and gave us the vaccines to deliver it. So we held those in February, on the 20th of February, our first clinic, and then we held a second clinic, about a month later, I think. And mashallah, we had over, first of all, I'd like to say that without the Makwas community, we really wouldn't have been able to do this, because we really need volunteers and the support. And, you know, McWAS is very open and agreeable to this. And so we were able to set this up. We had probably about, you know, 15 to 20 volunteers who we needed to set this up and made it run smoothly. I think the first clinic we did about 200 people, and the feedback was really amazing. You know, it was for us, you know, it was a reason to do it is also to attract, you know, non-Muslims to the community centre, and a lot of non-Muslims who'd come on that day just felt that it was really well organised, smooth, calm, efficient, and that was really nice to hear. It was also good for them to see, you know, all sort of Muslim, you know, people running the clinic pretty much. And to see that, you know, there's nothing to be afraid of us. We're not a burden on your community. You know, we are helping the community as well. So, because there is a lot of Islamophobia out there.
Yeah, that's true. And we're going to hold a few more vaccination days.
So yes, that's right. So in Ramadan, we're hopefully going to hold some dates in May. I think it's May the 8th, and then May the 29th, which is just after Ramadan, to help actually get people second doses of the ones who'd got the first doses in the previous clinics.
So a lot of the community has heard in the past that there's a very low take-up of the vaccine amongst the Muslim community and the BAME community in general. Do you think that this is still the case, and are these claims actually substantiated by official data?
I think that firstly, from working as a GP and seeing that, I think initially there was a lot of reluctance by the BAME community. You know, but I think things have improved a little with, you know, a lot of effort is being put in to try and advise people to get vaccinated. But yes, unfortunately, I still do see, you know, when I see people's notes, I can see that the ones who have declined the COVID vaccination are from the BAME community in general, much more than the white population.
I see. But is there government data supporting this, or is
it? There is government data, and I think it is something like if uptake for a typical person, a white person, is like 70-80% in the community, the BAME community are falling at, like, you know, sort of 50-40%. I couldn't be accurate, but I could get those figures from the CCG, you know.
Yeah, I see. Why do you think that is? What are the common myths that you've heard that are discouraging people from taking the vaccine?
Do you know, I wish I knew. I personally haven't seen anything, but I think from what I've been hearing from people is a lot of these WhatsApp messages, unfortunately, or hearing things from back home, you know, of, you know, misconceptions that it causes cancer. It's got, like, you know, animals in it. I don't know, you know, I don't know what it is that people are believing, but somehow I think there are people who are still suspicious of the medical profession or the pharmaceutical industry or whatever, and they think that we have an agenda, that we're trying to make money, or we're trying to microchip people or something like that. I don't know what it is, but people do unfortunately believe this, and I don't know why, but somehow the friend or family relative is more strong in persuading them than we are. But we are trying, and there have been, credit to the community, lots and lots of talks to try and give people that opportunity to listen to the facts and hear it, you know, what is actually going on. But yeah, there are still some people turning it down for whatever reason.
That's true. Do you think that, I mean, what would you say to the community then about the effectiveness of the vaccine and the importance of being vaccinated?
I mean, I would say that, you know, look, you know, because I know there are a lot of anti-vaxxers, that, look, you know, I don't mind your views on other vaccinations, but we are in a pandemic and we have got a killer virus out here. And so for this particular vaccine, you know, it is very important to have it because it's a life-saving thing. And this is a very new virus, and these are new vaccines. And to be honest, you know, we don't really know all the side effects of these vaccines. You know, they may be, you know, as people are getting them, more and more people will get to know. But the risks of being unvaccinated because you're worried of a potential side effect are too much to take, really, and I wouldn't recommend it. So, being vaccinated sort of gives you the effect of the virus, but in a controlled way that your immune system can cope with it. Whereas if you were to get COVID, you can die of it or have severe complications. And I have got a lot of patients where I look at their notes and I wonder why, A, they died from COVID, because some of them are young and healthy, and B, I've got a lot of patients who've got long-term complications of COVID, young people who used to run 4 miles a week, who now can't even go up and down the stairs without feeling breathless. I've got, there are people who had to go to ITU at St Heliers, young people, like I say, in their 30s or 40s, no medical problems, normal height and weight, BMI, they're not overweight, anything like that. And I'm looking their notes to see, why did that person go to ITU with clots on their brain and clots on their lung and clots all over their body? And there is no reason. It was just that the virus did it. And we can't explain why some people are reacting in a funny way to the virus. So even though the vaccine is a new vaccine, these are new vaccines, the risks are so much little compared with actually catching the disease, both long-term and short-term effects.
Do you actually think things will improve in the coming months leading to summer? And how do you think the community should remain vigilant?
Yes, I do think things will improve in the summer, because generally summer viruses are much less. So whether it's the heat or, people are out in the fresh air, I don't know. But every year, summer is sort of less busy for a GP than winter time. So hopefully, I do hope that, with more people being vaccinated and, the summer months and the heat, hopefully there'll be, less impact of COVID. But then again, I do worry about the winter months. And I do still think that, masks and social distancing, even with vaccinated individuals, are still very important.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Sadia. Thank you so much for your time. Do you have any last comments for the community?
Just to say that, inshallah, keep safe and be sensible. Like, it's really sad to, like this Ramadan, how many empty places there are of people who we know who have passed away, and, people from our Makwas community. And, I have been in touch with, people who've been widowed or people who've lost somebody, and it's real. It's a very real thing. And I think people, maybe, it's been a year of it, so people are getting a little bit jaded, a bit fed up of all of this. But I think it is important to keep safe in our communities and, try and keep the distance. I mean, I haven't hugged my mom for a year, just been keeping distance, because, just want to keep them safe, and I just would say to the community that, keep safe, keep vigilant, please enjoy your Eid and your, festivities, but in a safe way, so that you don't make someone ill. And I'll give you an example of this, of, somebody, with the Christmas time, there was a big sort of mess up with allowing people to meet and then not to meet, as rates were going up, and people met relatives for Christmas who then died, and I think I don't want to be sort of doom and gloom, but I think just be sensible, meet up, but do it somewhere safely, fresh air, and that, like I say, because this virus is evolving, and I'm sure we're going to still hear about these new variants, because that's what viruses do. They change, so we've got to be, still vigilant as well.
Well, thank you so much, Sadia. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jazakallah khair, for inviting me to speak.
No, that was our pleasure. Jazakallah khair.
All right. Walaikum salam.
Well, as you heard, very serious stuff. You heard it confirmed. This is a serious virus, and it is affecting all communities. Unfortunately, our community seems to be quite adversely affected. So we do need to help our loved ones by being vaccinated as soon as we're offered the vaccination. And please don't listen to the rumours, as Dr. Sadia said. You know, there are no scientific basis to any of those rumours. You know, we see the reality on the ground. There are missing Musallis, missing people from our community now, and indeed all around the world. We know the situation in South Asia, in India, where many of you and many of us have relatives. So it's a fairly serious situation, and of course we're all doing what we can. I wanted to say a big thank you to Dr. Sadia for her time with the interview, and of course to the other doctors, Dr. Nadeem and Dr. Kashif Aziz, as well as all the volunteers who have made those vaccination hubs so successful, and given the wider local community a sense of how the Muslim community is organised and able to assist in such a crisis. So long may this continue in terms of, you know, our ability to help, and not long may it continue that this COVID situation is in effect. Okay, I'm now going to move on to again just remind people of the numbers for the dialing in. So if anyone wants to dial in, remember that the number to dial into is, or the number to WhatsApp your message to is 07340 973 571. That is the Makwas mobile number, which is on the website, but it is again 07340 973 571. We will dial you in to the Zoom call. Just doing a quick time check here. And I know we have our next caller who's now ready, so we're going to ask them to unmute themselves. I believe it is Iman Dar. Iman, are you on the line?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Okay, good. And you said you're 8 years old, right?
Yes.
Whereabouts are you dialing in from? Which country are you based in?
I'm in Canada.
Canada. Now that is that's across the sea from us. So you've done well to dial into a radio station in the UK. And in terms of Ramadan, what are you doing that's special in Ramadan for yourself?
I read a lot of Quran, and I do all my prayers.
Okay, it's very good. And you're making du'as and things. And I think I also heard you were fasting for a few hours every day.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So you're soon going to be fasting all day long when it comes to when you get to that age, eh? So what is it you're going to what is it you were going to recite for us today?
I'm going to recite the Ayatul Kursi.
Oh, that's one of the most important ayats of the Quran. Okay, go ahead. Bismillah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض عند الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع الكرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم.
Sadaqallahu al-Azim. That was beautiful. Where did you learn to recite like that?
Actually, my dad used to sleep with me, and he every night before I went to bed, he used to say it to me, and that's kind of where I learned it.
Well, that's very good. Is there anything you'd like to say to anyone while you're on the radio?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, you can say any message of salam or anything to anyone. But if you have nothing else to say, thank you very much for dialing in. Very pleased that we have listeners out in Canada listening to us. You know, when we do a show next week, if you want to dial in again, please tell your friends, and you can dial in again. Excellent. Okay. Assalamu alaikum, Iman.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Okay, so remember everyone, The WhatsApp number to message in on is 07340 973 571. That's 07340 973 571. Just checking how we're doing for time. I think we are okay. Excellent. So we're just on time to move on to this week's interview with the Secretary General of the Muslim Council of Britain. I've already said her name is Zahra Muhammad. As already again stated, she is the youngest and the first Scottish and the first female Secretary General of the Muslim Council of Britain. She has a Master's in Human Rights Law. She was the President of the Federation of Students' Islamic Societies, FOSIS, and she has been a guest speaker in the House of Commons. I expect we shall see more from her in future, inshallah. And here she is. Well, firstly, congratulations of being the youngest appointment to the Secretary General of the MCB. I guess I just wanted to check, did you see the questions we wanted to ask you, or I want to ask you?
No, I think there was quite a lot of them, but it's fine, just go for it.
Okay, great. And hey, if you don't like anything, we can edit it out later. Okay. I'm not going to do a woman's hour thing on you, so don't worry.
Forever a women's hour.
Oh no, it's terrible, isn't it? It was shocking but funny. Hey,
well, whatever I can do to support the community.
And the other thing I've noticed, the Scots are kind of leaving us English Muslims behind. You know, you've got Anas Server as the Labour Party, is leader of the Labour Party in Scotland, right? Yeah. And then you've got yourself, and we've got Sadiq Khan, I guess. So
look, we are doing our bit for Muslim communities across the UK, showing leadership where needed, and sharing our accents far and beyond.
And I did notice that Nicola Sturgeon wants to increase the Muslim representation in Parliament. So has she spoken to you yet?
Not yet. But I have actually spoken to her before, so she's really quite friendly, and she's quite accessible actually as a leader.
Good. Okay, great. So I'll go straight into the questions because I know you're pushed for time, and I really do appreciate you giving us the time. I know you're busy. I wanted to ask at first was that the MCB has become quite influential in its representation of British Muslims. What do you feel have been the most important successes of that so far?
Yep. So, you know, I guess for those unaware, that the Muslim Council of Britain is the largest and most diverse Muslim representative umbrella organisation. Yeah. Always a mouthful. And I guess what that means is, you know, we've been really blessed for the past 23 years to have, you know, mosques, madrasas, charitable organizations, women's organizations, and now sports organizations under this, you know, vast umbrella across the UK. And I think, you know, non-sectarian, non-partisan, you know, kind of coming together and really in the spirit of how can we support one another, how can we really tackle the issues of our time, and how do we make kind of some progress. So I guess for me, some of the really important things that the MCB has achieved, I guess, is our work around Islamophobia, you know, pushing for the adoption of definition, but also, you know, we just recently published a report evidencing Islamophobia is real, it's institutional, it's systematic, it affects Muslim communities and beyond, but it is an issue that is a problem for all of society, not just Muslims. Yeah. And I think, you know, having those reports and publications are so important to building and empowering communities, because you need, you know, we're trying to lead with evidence-based research. And I think, you know, that's that kind of political engagement side of one thing. Then I think in terms of the community side, we've done things like Visit My Mosque, which has been a flagship campaign. And, you know, one day in which everybody, you know, all the mosques up and down the country, I think we had over 200 when we were allowed to open, whatever year that was now.
That was 2 years ago, actually. Yeah.
2 years ago.
Yeah, and we did that at our mosque. In fact, we did it 2 years running. And we came to the MCB Our Mosques, Our Future conference before that as well. So that was very well run by the MCB. Actually, you talked about Visit My Mosque, and you talked about Islamophobia, right? And we'll come on to that later as well. So you talked about, you know, the kind of Visit My Mosque and things like that. One thing I've noticed is that British Muslim organisations are becoming more mature. Is that making it easier for you, or do you think we've got a lot more work to do? I guess we have got a lot more work to do.
But we always have a lot more work to do. I think, you know, what's really important is that we have, mashallah, there's been a growth in Muslim organisations, different sectors, different spaces, different interests. We've had a kind of generational shift. And we've got more diversity, even in the MCB now. We've got so many more groups represented, from Somali to disabled Muslims to obviously Black Muslim community. So I'm really passionate about that engagement and diversity. And I think what we still are seeing, though, is an uneven development curve. You know, you'll have some mosques that are just trailblazing, really well governance, health and safety, you name it, they're on it. Volunteers, young people engagement. Others, you know, they're still struggling to get the building resolved, and, you know, they're facing issues. And I think the main thing is, I think that as Muslim communities, we're growing and we are developing, and there is a real need from all of us, even within the MCB, for us to end the othering and to be part of, you know, that really important. And we've seen it through COVID, like all of us coming together for the national effort to be seen, and you know, we're making a difference, we're supporting one another. And I think it's beyond Muslim issues, right? We also care about the environment, we also care about refugees. So that's all part of my kind of agenda of change, of like, you know, let's show the best of Muslim communities, because we're not just here for Muslims, we're actually here for all of humanity.
Okay, and then how does that lead into kind of what your current challenges are for the next sort of 3 years?
I think there are several different challenges. I think from COVID reality, you know, we've seen that the way the pandemic has hit Muslim communities in specific, you know, disproportionate impact specifically on death rate. We had quite a high rate death rate. Low, you know, we are in some of the most poor socioeconomic backgrounds. So we know public health inequalities have been very clear through this pandemic. Mental health, economic impact on businesses, you know, those on low income jobs. So I think we've got a lot to do in terms of recovery and support. And I think as communities, we've got to do that together. I think we've also got challenges in organization sustainability. You know, we've got to, we're all got to continue as organizations, pull through together. And then I think we still have this kind of global Islamophobia, you know, this kind of challenge that we're still trying to overcome. And I faced it a lot, even in my election, which was, really, you know, a woman in charge. And I just thought, well, what's wrong with that, you know? So
and after your election,
and after that, exactly. So I think the challenges are always going to be there, but we just have to face them, right, and overcome them.
Which, I mean, I guess if we just stand strong and carry on ignoring it and doing what we do best, you know, people stand up to see what Muslims really are about, right? And I think you're right. I mean, I agree. I see what you say in terms of when Muslim organizations who are still kind of holding up are just pushing forward with charity work and getting into the community. It's noticeable. It may not be celebrated within the media, and it certainly won't be talked about by some of our, you know, Conservative Party, you know, leaders. But it's certainly been seen at the grassroots level. So I guess that's the best thing to do. So in terms of initiatives that you have, I mean, there are so many initiatives when you look at the MCB and what they're doing. There's so many projects you've got, which, you know, mashallah, is great, right? Which ones do you feel are the ones that need the most immediate attention? And I know you've talked about COVID sort of disrupting things, but in your opinion, what needs the most immediate attention right now?
I think, you know, for me, what I'm quite concerned about is the impact on Muslim communities in terms of mental health and well-being. And I do think sometimes we don't focus on these areas enough, you know, like how are people have suffered loss like they've never suffered before. Even in Ramadan, we know people are suffering loss, and it's been a different kind of reality. So I think certainly we've got to find better ways to support and comfort one another. And I think there's going to be a lot around getting back to society. You know, people are not used to people, you know. I think it was a big relief this year that we could go back to mosques for Ramadan in a safe way, in a restricted way. So I think there's a lot on that. But what I'm really passionate about is young people and how we can really give them the best. You know, they're still facing a lot of barriers, they're still facing challenges to employment, challenges to participation. And, you know, some of them, like myself, are third generation now. So I think developing confident British Muslims, making sure they get the best start. I think things like that are really important, you know, women in leadership, but also just getting more women involved, diverse communities. So there's a lot to be done, but I feel like our communities are up for it and are already doing it, to be honest.
Good. Just talking about young people, that's quite a theme for us in our sort of community centre as well, right? We would like them to take the baton and run with it, because I just feel that as my generation, right, if we carry on doing everything, we don't think forward as much as they would. So something the MCB does is, I mean, the MCB relies on volunteers such as yourself. That is right, isn't it? You're a volunteer.
That's right. Yeah.
What challenges do you think we face as a community when a young person wants to volunteer, right? So I just wanted to hear what you think. How do you encourage young people, or even older people, to volunteer with organisations such as the MCB to develop them?
Well, I'm really excited. I mean, I think I've been a lifelong volunteer in my short life. So I'm really passionate about volunteering. And I think, you as a person, as a Muslim, it's part of who we are, what we do, giving back. I think it's important for people. I know with the volunteering journey, sometimes it's like burnout and it's a give, take, right? And and I think what I'm really, being someone who's gone through that journey, it's what's important is, well, the purpose, what is it, the change that you want to make, but also B, knowing the parameters of what you can give, being realistic and kind of setting expectations clear from the start. And then C, remembering that, Allah will always put barakah in what you do, small or big. So don't feel like you need to be all or nothing,
Absolutely.
Whatever time you can give, that's it. Just give that, and don't feel like you've got to do, you burn yourself out. And I think we have a volunteer culture that probably could do with a bit of a renewal. And, but at the end of the day, if we don't do something and we complain, then we're not necessarily helping the issue. So I always feel very responsible. I said, I'm not going to complain. If I'm not going to put my effort where my mouth is, I can't say too much, can I?
Yeah, exactly. If you find yourself shouting at the telly when the news is on, right, and you're not doing anything about it, there's so many ways we can get involved in local politics. We can get involved with the local community in so many ways. Do dawah, not necessarily standing in high street shouting with the Quran in our hand, but all sorts of
like writing articles, doing copyright, proofreading, doing website, doing a little bit at making it, designing something, graphic design, small things that all add up to getting us to our goal.
Great. Yeah. I would like to see younger children being supported by their parents a bit more in volunteering, because I think we as a community do put a lot of emphasis on education, right? So anything else seems to get in the way of that, especially if it's not paid work, which is another issue that comes up. Right? So, okay, great. So going back to the Our Mosques, Our Future that we were mentioning earlier, the conference, which has been excellent in showcasing sort of the best practices in different areas around the country, right? Like outreach, youth involvement, governance, female access, etc. Does the MCB have plans to give or help mosques collaborate to benefit from these best practices? I know you do a lot on your website, but is there anything more you can do, or are you planning on doing?
Well, absolutely. That's our strategy this year, which is we kind of have the toolkit and we've got that kind of understanding, but how do we implement it on the ground? So we're actually reviewing our strategy completely, and we're going to be doing engagement differently. And I think we want a bottom-up approach where we really want to listen to mosques and community organizations. And I think there's different dynamics here. There's regional context and local context. And I think it's like you want to build partnership. We don't want to impose that this is how you have to do things. We actually want to encourage more of a collaborative working, which is probably the more effective option here. So look, we know where we want to head as communities, but we know that everyone's going to need different support to get there. So our approach is going to be really different. We're actually developing a new strategy. And we also want to highlight local initiatives more. I think there's a lot we still have to learn, I've been speaking to a great charity on foster care, My Foster Family, and, topics like that, or environmentalism, or, bringing science and maths to mosques and, after school, programs. So there's little things like that where I think, why don't we show it in action and get our affiliates to lead the way.
Well, one question on prejudice. You talked about prejudice, right? So there is prejudice and racism and Islamophobia from outside the Muslim community towards the Muslim community, right? So all the right-wing, action, all that kind of stuff. But there's also prejudice from within our community, and the MCB has been tackling that to try and promote inclusivity in all sorts of ways. Do you find that when we talk about prejudice within the communities are surprised that it even exists?
Then, I mean, I don't think so. I think we all know, we all know where our prejudices are and where they come from,
Yeah.
and why they still exist even today. I think there's a lot of, I mean, that's why one of my big things that I'm promoting is inclusion and diversity. I think as an umbrella organization, we've got to lead by example. And that is to say that the Muslim community is not a homogenous block. It's not just South Asian. It's not just Arab. It's not just, African. It's not one. It's a global ummah that we represent. It's so diverse. And what about the convert community? So I think there's a lot of work. I think there's a lot of home truths, absolutely, that we need to wake up to. But the real change won't happen until our mindset and our cultural kind of, preconceptions, these notions, like interracial marriage, or, the different mosques having different cultural mixes in there. And, but I think the new generation are mixed race. Some of
they
them
are a bit more,
some of them are very British and don't really identify with their cultural identity at all, and they're open-minded, and not to say the older generation isn't, but I think things have to change, otherwise you're going to lose that engagement.
Exactly. And also, I mean, I find just like the recent the Black Lives Matter movement has become global and almost it's hit our screens in a big way, and it seems to have gone away for a little while. But it started a conversation. I don't think we as a community or as a religion, a bunch of Muslims in the UK have actually started the conversation of internal prejudice we have between ourselves. And that's something that I think I would like to see. And I'm not sure if the MCB can take that on as yet another project.
Well, we have the Proudly Black and Muslim project. So yes. I guess that's part of the conversation, not all of it. Good. And that's been really good. That's been going for 2 years. They've developed a toolkit. They've developed workshops and training. I've made a commitment for us to have an internal workshop for us first as well as part of that. And hopefully they'll be working towards a report as well. So I think, we recognize that just as you have. And we're doing our best to handle it. But you're right, there is a lot there. Yeah. And it requires everybody to work with us on that.
Okay. And inevitably, we were going to ask some questions about women in Muslim societies, right? Not just because we're talking to you, but because the theme of this week's show is about sisters as well. So now we know that the development of women is getting a lot of attention in the MCB as an ongoing initiative. And it's fantastic, the work you guys do. But we also need to, and you're probably doing this as well, so I just wanted to know more about this really. I think we need to address the resistance to women in positions of influence. So what do you personally do to reassure people, to make them recognise the positive impact of allowing women some control?
That I'm not scary. So what do I do to reassure them that it's, I was part of the MCB for 2 years before, I got elected, and I was working really hard, very, very energetic, traveling up and down the country, going to meetings, and, and I think, part of it is, we do have these issues in our community, and we can certainly do better. And what I think really helped in my case was, Haroon Khan, who was the former Secretary General, he gave me the space and the trust, and he facilitated that, that mentorship and experience for me. And I think we need more of that mentorship, and it's going to come from the male side and the female side, but mainly from the male side. And I think what I've noticed is that there's a lot of people that were so excited and supportive of me running in the election and being elected, because they had daughters, they had granddaughters, they had nieces, nephews, and sisters who they wanted to thrive and to do things in the community space. And they wanted some role models there. And I think sisters are already doing loads. They do loads behind the scenes. And you're only helping yourself by supporting that journey, because, we'll roll up our sleeves and get on with the work. And I certainly always say I'm here to deliver. So it's nice to be a celebrity, but I've got work to do. So.
And you're absolutely right. A lot of the sisters do a lot of work, which is unsung, unsung heroes. They're just in the background, making things happen. Okay, and it's good to see that there are some who are more prominent and leading. So in terms of leadership, what kind of innate qualities do you think women bring to leadership? I'm not saying this as if I don't know that there are any, but just in case I didn't know, right? If I was someone who was completely, ignorant of that, how would you kind of tell me what qualities women bring to leadership posts within Muslim communities, which are traditionally held by men, right? And you've already said you feel supported by some men in this role, and is that across the board? And what advice, therefore, would you give to young women who want to pursue their dreams, but feel that society is perhaps putting them in a box and restricting them? So
yeah, okay, no, all wonderful points, and all really important as well. I think, in terms of qualities, that all of us, we look to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we look at his, and I always look at his qualities too. And I think there are great things that we all have about us, each of us in our own way. More diplomacy, maybe more, that well-being. So, there's different things, and I don't want to kind of generalize men and women, but I think certainly as a woman in leadership, I think there's always that, in some ways you can get very strong personalities that may soften a bit more. You can get a bit more diplomatic on things. You don't need to use, some people get quite, I'm not a hothead, I'm pretty cool as a cucumber, right? So for me, I'm able to use a different range of skill sets to get the same result in a different way. And I think the perfect harmony is when men and women are able to work together, because we are representing, two halves of society, and you need both. You can't do it without the other. And I think when I always think about the prophetic leadership skills, I think about listening more than I speak. I think about bringing people with me. I think about servant leadership. I think about, sincerity, keeping myself humble, doing the deeds that others can't see, the private good deeds. I think about apologizing for my mistakes and being humble enough to know that I will make some, because I'm not perfect. So I think there's all these different things you've got to have in your toolkit. And I think for the sisters who have what I call imposter syndrome, because I had it too. Oh, can it be me? Can I do it? Can I,
We have it too. Men have it too.
Men have it too, right? So we all have it. We all have that little voice telling us, oh, there's someone better. And that first, think about the difference that you can make. So I always say, forget yourself, think about the cause. Think about the change you're trying to make, right?
Yeah, good
and then
advice.
Think about, so put yourself out of it, stop talking about yourself, focus on. So when I looked at this opportunity at MCB, I said, but the potential to make change was big. And,
right.
and if Allah's opened that door for me to help make a little bit of that change, how can I say no?
True.
And surround myself with people that would encourage me and support me to go through that door and to keep going with me, because I can't do it. I think a lot of us think that we're the only one, we're going to have to change it all. You can't. You have to get people to support you and even challenge you and embrace that, because you need both of it. And I think for me, on the whole, I'm in a very male dominated space, and mashallah, I must admit, they've been supportive. They want to work with me. And I think my vision is, it's about young people. It's about things that matter to everybody, irrespective of their gender and their age. So I think it's been good. And I would just say, look, go for it. At the end of the day, you don't want to live your life with regrets and fears. You want to live it on courage and chances. And it's okay, Allah, it's all successes with Allah ultimately. So don't feel like you've got to make it all the way through by yourself.
Make your effort, yeah. I mean, if I can just add to that, my experience of in life, right? I've worked for a number of organisations. I've worked with when I've had colleagues who are female leaders, and I've worked for some as well. And they have an intuition, they have a way of managing that us men can't do, right? So it's not easy for me to accept that or admit that, right? But this is a secret, so don't tell anyone I said this.
I won't tell anybody, just between us.
I think I would like young women to know that they do make generally better managers and great leaders as well. So if they can if they can take that and run with it and forget the imposter syndrome, because half the men you're probably competing against have got it too.
Brilliant.
Okay, so finally, I know we're kind of short of time, and I'd really appreciate this. I just want to talk about the MCB's role in tackling Islamophobia. So recognising the work in the UK on the APPG definition, but there is a lot of denial of Islamophobia within the government, especially the Conservatives, and I know I'm probably being a bit contentious saying this, and now within Labour, right, with Keir Starmer sort of not coming to an iftar opening because he's been coerced because he doesn't like people supporting the BDS or whatever. So I find that quite crippling when at the top level in the country, the government level, there is Islamophobia and it's been ignored and it's been encouraged almost. So what leverage does the MCB have without the Muslim community as voting citizens helping in an organised way? And how can we as a community help the MCB leverage us? Or should we just accept this as our lot in this country?
Well, obviously we shouldn't just accept it. I think, the nature of Islamophobia, the really difficult part of it is its systemic quality. It's always been there. It's the institutional nature, your inability to attain the top job because you don't look the part. This is some of the things that people, say to me, the experience that they have, education, employment, financially, the opportunities you get, the places you can speak at and you can't. And I think, for us as Muslim communities, we have to bring allies with us into this conversation. This is not just our issue to handle ourselves, because that's not how anything is ever challenged. We need to bring allies with us. We need to share the importance of what division can do for all communities, not just ours. I think having a definition, having that protection in law is something we've got to continue to work towards, because people are facing it, and they need to have. This is different. It's not just racism. This is actually something that people, unfortunately have against Muslims. So I think we've got to work towards a definition. We've got to work towards education and training for those all across sectors. And we're actually getting a lot of interest in that already at the MCB, which is great. But as Muslim communities, I mean, look, it's your neighbors, your friends, your spheres of influence, your workplace. The thing is, you've got to humanize the conversation and help people understand Islam. I find that underlying all of this is they just don't understand Islam.
Yeah.
And they're afraid of it. And we need to bring that. It's such a beautiful religion. We've got to share it, in a beautiful way.
And for that, I guess we need to understand it ourselves, at the grassroots level. So it is a fear of the unknown. Yeah. Just as a second question to that, do you feel that the MCB is impacted by pressure from right-wing organisations to curb its influence or activities? And if so, how can we help?
No, I don't. I mean, I think we're going to do the work no matter what anybody thinks. And that's what we're here to do. And so long as our members support us, we'll continue to do that. And I think we need to be fierce and unyielding for that cause, but of course wise and diplomatic, of course, too, not too fierce. So no, I think, look, this is collective. We've all got to work together. As a Secretary General, I'm welcoming and open to feedback, to ideas, to campaigns, to solutions. We don't claim to have it all, but absolutely, if you support us, invest in us, and whatever time, like you said, volunteer, whatever you can give, and inshallah, it will just make us all stronger in the long term.
Inshallah. So fierce and wise and welcoming and all that stuff. Okay, good. A couple of last questions, really. Does the MCB have partnerships with European organisations to collaborate on issues such as like the French ban on halal meat and the hijab? And what advice would you give to Muslims in European countries with those increasingly anti-Muslim laws?
So this is something that actually we're working on now. So it's good that you brought it up. It's completely on my radar. My background is in human rights law, and the international space is something that I'm passionate about. And actually, just the other day, I spoke to the Council of Europe on this matter. So I can't say anything more than that, but other than it's, inshallah, a work in progress. And we stand in solidarity with brothers and sisters all over Europe and the world anybody facing this kind of situation. And I think all of us have felt it for years, haven't we? We've all seen it, and we've all thinking our heart goes out to them. So, but from the MCB point of view, we want to be strategic. We do want to make an impact, and we'll work with our partners here and across Europe to do that, inshallah.
Okay. And if, I mean, I know this isn't a fearmonger, right? But it's a hypothetical question, right? But if tomorrow the government announced they wanted to bring in a law to ban halal meat or the hijab or both or anything like that, what would or what can the MCB do? Where would you start?
I don't know if there's enough for us to finish in a minute of this interview, but what I would say is I don't have those kinds of fears, because mashallah, we have really well organized Muslim communities. We have great allies within political representation, and we have laws and processes and governance. You know, we do have the benefit of a non-dictatorial approach to governance, and I think we're quite blessed in that sense that we are quite organized as Muslim communities. It doesn't take much. You know, we saw there was a fear of cremation at the start of COVID, and that got shut down very quickly. So I think the power of our communities is strong, but as is the protections around our faith in this country. And, you know, we need to continue to work with allies so we don't ever get to these kinds of situations. I have to go now, by the way.
I just wanted to thank you finally for your time. It's been great talking to you. I think it'd be great for the youngsters, especially in our community, to hear that. Good luck with your role. And we just wish to see, you know, great things from the MCB. So no pressure.
Inshallah, absolutely. And with your support, of course. I'm not doing it alone.
Of course, we're all here. Just call upon us anytime.
Amazing.
Take care. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. That was the Secretary General of the MCB talking about the MCB and its vision over the next few years. She spoke, you know, very boldly about the initiatives in progress, such as collaborating with mosques, looking for volunteers, prejudice, Islamophobia, and the development of women within the MCB. They are doing a lot of work. She also mentioned the contribution of women in society and how we could rely more on our sisters to take charge and provide some of the you know, much needed leadership that we need in our societies. And finally, she was also very confident in the power of our communities, you know, in the face of challenges such as, you know, the ban on the hijab and things like that. So yeah, it was great talking to her. Hopefully you guys, hopefully everyone found that useful. I'm just going to bring in Sister Olga now. Sister Olga, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear me. Sorry. What was that? Can I?
You can hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, great. All right. So just you heard that interview. I know you've heard that before. Just you know, something she said about volunteers, and you know, they are the backbone of organisations such as the MCB and of course for MAQUAS as an organisation. And she mentioned that we should encourage people to volunteer and things like that. So in your case, I mean, you have quite a busy life. Like, you're working, you have a family. I understand from my wife that you are also taking the ladies' Quran classes, which seem to be, you know, hours of work every week. So how do you recommend that others in the community manage their time so that they can volunteer in areas that they can contribute to, especially amongst the sisters?
Yeah, so I think I'm no different to most sisters in our community. I think we're all very busy, you know, spinning many plates every day. We're raising children, we're managing our homes, we're working. Many sisters run their own business. We're learning, we're attending classes. And then there are also many sisters in our community who are taking care of aging parents and children with special needs and disabilities. I think it's quite remarkable, actually, and I'm always in awe of our sisters who sort of like show so much resilience in the face of it all on a day-to-day basis. I think, to be fair, many sisters are already working in their communities and, you know, influencing their circles. But in terms of encouraging more sisters to volunteer, I think the most important thing is to not shy away from the gifts and the experiences that Allah has blessed us with, and to to find a way in which we all can, improve our community that we live in, to go forward. There is small things that we can do, and I think people think that MCWAS is being, the trustees are doing, moving the work along and stuff like that, but it's not really. It will be, the success of MCWAS will be the sum of the many parts of contribution that everyone makes. But what I find is that's really encouraging is that there are many younger professional sisters coming forward and becoming more involved in this space, so similar to sort of like Sister Zahra Muhammad. I think, and just to add, there are some of the things that MCWAS needs sisters for, and most communities will need sisters for, is things like running school visits, which are largely online at the minute, but will obviously go face to face, inshallah, in the near future. Representation of sisters at interfaith events, promoting other social events at the centre, like health and exercise, and doing our bit for ensuring that mental health in our community is addressed. There's a lot of youth development work that sisters can get involved in, and also, not leaving the younger members of the community behind. So things like arts and craft and, youth clubs and things like that.
Yeah. I think sisters, they bring a creative side to, a community that is often left out, not because it's anyone's fault, but because a community centre is often put together by, us men, purely for, to have Jummah and 5-time prayers and things like that. And then the sister side is kind of left out and it's bolted on as an add-on. So it's good to see that some mosques, as the MCB has already collaborated with, have already made strides in, having sisters' activities, introduced and integrated within the mosques. And the fact that you yourself are a trustee will make sure that, when we are making decisions in terms of, the vision going forward and anything we do in terms of making changes, that you bring that side, because you are aware of all the, the needs of the sisters. The other thing that encourages me, I remember when there was a group set up for the to see what we could do about the Uyghurs and their plight. There were more sisters involved in that group than there were brothers. They were very capable sisters. It'd be great to see more of them, come forward in other things, especially not just in activism and protesting, but in taking our communities forward and teaching the youngsters on how they can contribute and to making the Muslim voice heard in a calm and structured and a logical way, so that it can't we can't be written off as a bunch of hotheads, as we often are, unfortunately. The other thing I just wanted to ask you was, she mentioned the imposter syndrome, right? So have you ever felt like you're biting off more than you can chew in the role that you've just started? And if so, how do you advise young people to overcome that?
Yeah, so I think imposter syndrome is an interesting thing. I've always found it's definitely something that exists in our minds, and we can be very good at feeding our thoughts with these insecurities, I think. I work in a very male-dominated industry where behaviour is often dictated by, your very stereotypical alpha personality.
What do you do, by the way?
I work in finance, in asset management. Sort of like any, it doesn't help, I think, that women don't generally tend to put themselves forward, even with the same level of qualifications and experience that their male counterparts have. We tend to focus more on the bit around the edges for which we're not so confident about, which then means that we don't seek those new roles, we don't put ourselves up for promotion, we don't get selected into teams, I think it takes, years of building the courage to sort of like lean forward in those conversations and to kind of like challenge it effectively, so challenge yourself effectively. But I think, I think the younger professionals, the younger Muslim girls in our community, I think need good mentorship. I've always had 2 mentors throughout my entire life, alhamdulillah. And I think that if you can find somebody who, helps to, have that, sort of like carry out the vision that you have for yourself in your mind, but then also, bring in all of the things that are important in your life into that. I think it's very, it can be very beneficial, and it can be, it can be a way of building confidence, I think, in girls.
So when you talked about mentorship, if the community locally were to have a few sisters who would put themselves up as mentees, not mentees, as mentors, right, to other younger girls, that would be quite something for them to turn to, because I find a lot of people, they have busy lives, but they have daughters who want to do something in a field that they aren't familiar with because they're not involved, and sometimes they could do with that extra guidance and help in hand, especially in terms of networking as well, from other women. So I mean, that would be something that our community could do quite well with so many capable brothers and sisters. I don't think we've embarked upon anything like that. Is that something you might decide to do as a trustee?
Yeah, I think so. We haven't discussed that as a group as yet, but definitely there's benefit in that. And as you say, the range of qualifications and experiences that the community collectively have we can see is quite unique and quite strong. And I think the more younger people have access to some of the experiences that we have already had, then it becomes easier for them and less, I guess, traumatic in terms of some of the things that they think that might hold them back as British Muslims, which I think having sort of worked professionally for many years, that doesn't exist. I really don't believe that exists. When I first started working in Sydney in the late 90s, I prayed sort of like in and in sort of like in meeting rooms that weren't being used. I mean, in the workplaces now in central London, you have proper mushallas, you have proper wudu facilities, you have lunch and learn sessions in Ramadan. My colleagues fast with me. So it's amazing. So we definitely have moved forward with all of that. And I think that sometimes to a young girl, it can be a little bit daunting, or it can seem as if no one's ever done this before. But no, there are many of us in the community who have walked that path.
Yeah. And as you're kind of, entering into new areas where, I'm not saying that, I mean, there are Muslim men and women in almost every industry in the UK, right? Or, well, certainly the halal industries, right? But, I mean, when the only thing is, a youngster from our community, from this local community, may not know anyone in those areas, and I might find it difficult to know how to sort of either enter or even make Muslim contacts, and even know how to progress because of the various prejudices or the stigmas that kind of hold them back. So it would be great for them to know. I mean, like in the financial services industry, it would be great for them to know who is who's worked in that and who can help them. So they can even talk to them on a very personal level about any particular issues they're facing at work. How do they overcome it? Whether you've overcome something like that, and just that kind of advice would really help a person when they're especially setting out in their first 1 or 2 jobs. I mean, I'm sure that most people will tell you that they could do with a mentor all the way into their into their senior career as well. And finally, I just wanted to ask you. She discussed the hijab, right? and all of the various positives and negatives around that. Too much to go into, right? But in your experience of wearing a hijab in a professional setting, what has that been like, and what would you say to people, or sisters generally, obviously, considering wearing a hijab but being a bit apprehensive because they're worried about how it will be received at work?
Good question. So I think the hijab journey for every sister is very special, and it's a very unique one. I think in the actual workplace environment, which can be a very non-Muslim setting, my experience has been that people generally respect you for it. I think it shows conviction in sort of like your beliefs. Most workplaces in the UK are, promote sort of like diversity of thought and inclusivity of background. So I think, so I think there are some things, I guess, that you feel afraid of. So I don't like, sometimes in order to kind of like move up in your career, you need to do a lot of networking. You need to spend a lot of time outside of the office hours, socializing and networking, etc. But I think you have to just kind of like stay true to your beliefs. Like I would never join for work, after work drinks or anything like that. But I think there is a general curiosity over the hijab and being a Muslim, and praying in the office, and fasting during Ramadan. A lot of Muslims in the workplace, I think now, are give regular lunch and learn sessions during Ramadan. Like I do that all the time in terms of explaining to people what Ramadan is, what Muslims believe in. And I think there is generally curiosity. People do want to learn, and there is so very little degrees of separation between us that even in the workplace, when you're working with non-Muslim colleagues, there will be a colleague of yours who has some cousin who is Muslim, or married into a Muslim family, or some neighbor who is Muslim. So I think it's not as weird. I mean, just very recently, one of my colleagues asked me to read a speech that he had prepared for his godson's christening. And as I read it, he had some excerpts from Rumi, and he had some of the hadiths of our beloved Prophet, peace be upon him. And I was so impressed. And he said that basically it was because, one of the cousins had married into a Muslim family and would be attending the christening. So I think it isn't strange in its entirety. There is a little bit of challenge that you have, but it's not anything that would sort of like question or backtrack in terms of any decision making in terms of wearing the hijab. It's definitely one of those things that you can easily overcome. I mean, like, people will probably look at you for the first one or two meetings, and then after that it's people, to be honest, Kesha, people don't really care. I think we have to kind of like we have to really make ourselves believe the fact that the hijab, people really don't care. They really don't care. Like, that's how I like to see it.
Yeah, and we're lucky in London. You can look like anything in London. You don't stand out now. So that's great. Thank you. So thank you, Sister Olga. That's been very enlightening for me. I'm sure it's been enlightening for the listeners. I hope it has, certainly. So we're going to start to close now because we're getting close to iftar. So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Sister Olga, for joining us, and thank you for everyone who's contributed. Join us next week when we will be speaking to local personalities from the community about ongoing activities here. Until then, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our ibadah and grant our du'as in this blessed month of Ramadan. Now I'm going to play the two du'as from Imam Yusuf Sahin. Straight after that it will be iftar time. So thank you for listening, and here are the du'as.
محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت، وعافنا فيمن عافيت، وتولنا فيمن توليت، وبارك لنا فيما أعطيت، وقنا برحمتك واصرف عنا شر ما قضيت، فإنك تقضي ولا يقضى عليك، إنه لا يذل من واليت ولا يعز من عاديت، تباركت ربنا وتعاليت. لك الحمد على ما قضيت، ولك الشكر على ما أعطيت. نستغفرك اللهم من جميع الذنوب والخطايا ونتوب إليك.
So thank you for listening. Iftar time is in about a minute's time or a few seconds' time. May Allah accept all our fasting. So once again, as I mentioned, please do listen next week, where the local personalities will be talking about some of the ongoing activities in Carshalton and Wallington by the people here from Makwas and the volunteers involved in that. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. May Allah accept our fasting, and here is the dua for breaking the fast.
ذهب الظمأ وابتلت العروق وثبت الأجر إن شاء الله.
The thirst has gone, the veins are moist, and the reward is confirmed if Allah wills.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته.
O Allah, Master of this perfect call and established prayer, grant Muhammad the intercession and the favour, and raise him to the honoured station that you have promised him.